we're on film. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
So today we're going to kind of have some fun. We're going to talk about negotiating, and at first negotiating, you know, you'll kind of go, I don't know what I'm doing, but it's the kind of thing that as you do it and you do it, you get better and better, and your main job is just really, as we talked about yesterday, helping them understand and anticipate the process. So as it's ongoing, they're not going to be, you know, befuddled. I can remember my first successful negotiation. I was like 28, and I was a assistant manager for a bank downtown Seattle, and it was actually uptown Seattle, and I was out doing business development calls in the neighborhood, and I went over to Lou Florence BMC, British Motor Company, and on the showroom was this absolutely gorgeous MGB. It was yellow with a black racing stripe, black top. Oh my God! I had a new car that I'd gotten 6 months before, a perfectly good Toyota Celica, and I just said I have to have this. So I went back later and I got together with the guy, and he was a misogynist. This guy was patronizing towards women, big time, and he was just Mr. Arrogant, and I'm cool and handsome, and it's like whatever, and so I had him write it up, and the best price that he could give me on the car, and we went back and forth, and we ended up with, I was going to get killed on my Toyota. I mean, you drive the car off the lot and it loses 10 grand.
Yeah.
And so I said to him, I said, okay, I said, it's Friday. I said, let's do this. It was Thursday night. I said, I want to go out this weekend and see if I can't sell my car. And I said, will you hold to this price for the new car without that trade-in? Well, he thought that was never going to happen.
Yeah.
And he said, sure. Well, he didn't know me. So I called up Pat Marcy, she worked for the attorney upstairs, and Pat had been down, we were trying to put together a car loan for her, and I was a lending officer, and she didn't qualify for that much car. So I called Pat up and I said, I think I have an answer to your new car. So I said, meet me in the garage. So she came, oh God, and I said, I'll give it to you for this. She says, let's do it. So I put her together with Sharon Saunders, the manager of the branch, because I didn't want a conflict of interest. Sharon took care of the loan, approved, and I go in there on Monday, and I'm ready to buy that car. And you have never seen anybody more flabbergasted in his life. I mean, he just knew there was no way that little woman was going to sell that car over the weekend. Well, did I get a deal? Unfortunately, what I learned about British cars is that they love to be in the shop. So I really got to know the service manager at Lou Florence BMC really well, because somebody told me that it's because the Brits like to tinker. But it sure was cool driving it. Yeah. Okay, so that's negotiation. There's some juice in negotiating, right? There's some juice, and so let's follow. We're gonna follow the book some, and you know me, I'm gonna tell lots of good stories and kind of fill in the dots. So today we're going to learn some negotiation tips, and we're going to understand the most common points in negotiation, walk through the 3 P's approach to the negotiation process, and identify negotiation tactics and counter tactics. Okay, let's jump on in. Oops, back we go. Okay, so here's some facts, and I think this is kind of interesting. We're looking at another survey from the National Association of Realtors, and during that survey, negotiations ranked second in the list of what buyers want most from their agent. Amazingly, it was only 6th in what sellers want. It's like, really? So it's a pivotal point. You either put her together or you don't, and so you're going to have a couple of things going on. One is when you're going back and forth in the option on the contract with the buyer and the seller, and then you may later need to come in while under contract to deal with things, for example, that come up in inspections. So you may well have two periods of negotiating while you're keeping this deal, either putting it together or keeping it together. And we're moving here, we're working our way to a contract, and then all we have to do is get it closed. Not to make that sound easy, it's not. And then paydays, which are a beautiful thing. So we negotiate all the time. It's just really simple. It's a bargaining process between two or more parties. Most importantly, each with its own aims, needs, and viewpoints, seeking to discover a common ground or a win-win, okay, and reach an agreement. So that's what negotiating is. And so we've got four parties in the middle of ours. We've got a buyer, we've got the buyer's agent, we've got the seller and the listing agent. Well, some of the negotiation goes on right here between these two. It's not always, all the way over to the other side, because you're trying to help, if your seller is really wanting to, stick to his price, you need to help him understand why that's really not a good strategy. It's not going to get his house sold. And the buyer, you might want to be coming in with a really stupid offer, and so you're going to have to work with him to get that offer something that you've got a chance in putting together. So your process is at even more stages than we think. So I'm going to start off with a video today, and we're going to watch Josh Anderson. And
hi, I'm Josh Anderson from Nashville, Tennessee. I've been with KWRG since 2006. 2014, we did about 200 transactions for about $60 million in volume. I grew up on a farm, so I've always seen my dad negotiating land and cows and horses, being the youngest of four, and I'm trading and negotiating with my brothers.
I like the little tie.
All growing up, so I've kind of done it all the time. Some people are certainly gravitate toward it and are naturally better at it than others. But I think that negotiation can definitely be learned. I think there's a lot of skills that go into being a great negotiator. I think it's learning your client. Instead of kind of assuming that you know what's important to them, really asking a lot of questions and letting them tell you what they need or want, and then speaking to the other agent and finding out what's most important to their client. And there's some agents that just don't give any. When I have an agent that I'm dealing with that's very tight-lipped, I just keep asking questions, and they give me information that they might not have otherwise given, whether it's a divorce or a death, or it's just they got relocated to some other city. And I think if you're really listening and being intentional and purposeful about listening, you'll find out exactly what's important to them or what they have to have. In certain situations, you have to be creative. We're always looking for that next little tip to help our clients out and win the deals. One of the techniques that we've used a lot that's worked well for us is the escalation clause. For example, if the property is listed at $250,000, we might go in at $250,000 with strong terms, and in special stipulations we might put in there that we're willing to beat the next best documented offer by $1,000 up to $263,000. And the best offer might be $261,000, so we end up getting it for $262,000. From a client standpoint, be willing to have a real conversation with your clients. It's not us just being realtors for them, it's us consulting and advising and really telling them, if you really want this property, here's what you have to do to get it. Everybody's got a different way of how they would negotiate. And networking with other Keller Williams agents around the country, the more you hear it, the more ideas you get. And then you end up gearing it towards you and what you think is going to work best for you and your clients. A lot of it comes down to experience, and I think the more deals you do, the more comfortable you get with it. If you can step back from every transaction and learn something, you're gonna get really good over time.
Sorry about that extra noise coming out of there. Okay.
Hi, I'm Josh.
Hi, Josh. Okay, so what'd you get out of that?
Ask a lot of questions.
Ask a lot of questions. Yep. What else?
Just listening to your people, seeing what they need and want. I guess that goes along with asking a lot of questions, though.
You heard him talk about educating them, and there was one thing he talked about in this video. I have never used that escalation clause. I never heard of it until I got this class, and that is something you commonly will not run into. Sean Seward, he's our number one, he does more transactions than anybody in this office. In fact, he's number one in North Florida region. He's run into that. I think that probably was a strategy when we were doing a lot of foreclosures and short sales that people would have used, a lot of multiple offer situations. And we'll talk about multiple offers, and remind me to do that towards the end today, exactly how you handle those. But the big things to pull out of this is, you're gonna get better and better at doing it over time, but it's absolutely going in, getting your people ready, they understand the process, and where it might go wrong, and preparing them for things that, a lot of times just things that are gonna keep them from accomplishing their goals that are because they're, being, just because of their thought processes. Okay, so a couple of things. You're always a professional, all right? And we talked yesterday about keeping emotions in check. That includes your emotions. So always remember, you want to keep your people. You don't make people into enemies. The other agent shouldn't be an enemy. That other party should not be an enemy. This is not a contest of this is not football. You have a goal. You want to get a contract signed, and to get a win-win, that means both parties have to feel like they've got a win, and sometimes that can be kind of hard. I was telling you yesterday about that my two couples that were architects that had the house Red Fisher, and I told them both to keep their emotions in check. Well, one of them, her emotions weren't. They spent a lot of time getting back to. We were on the phone, either me with one, me with the other, me with the agent for an entire evening. And I think we finally got her done about 10 o'clock that night, and we've been going at it since 5. And on that deal, it was kind of funny. The buyer was, he had other houses that he had lined up. If this one didn't work, he was just going to dump it and go to another. And so Roshan was pretty much in cement. They wanted to get this deal done, and they'd been on the market for over a year with another agent that had horrible pictures of their house. They weren't getting showings, much less offers. And that was one listing that I took after it expired that I didn't even drop the price. I thought they were priced perfectly. And but it ended up happening with them. The win-win, they were selling it furnished, was that the sellers got to keep the pool table. It was like, really? And what was really funny, and that was, we had the couple, the Careers, Catherine and her husband, and then we had the gal, the divorcee, and that was what he needed to finally feel good about it. Later on, Catherine told me that was the stupidest thing. She says, do you know how hard it is to get a pool table out of a house that's 12 feet up in the air? It was a pain in the you-know-what. But you find what we found an angle and it worked. And he says, okay, I'll do that, but I get to keep the pool table. Okay. That was easy. And got her done, everybody moved on. Catherine and her husband bought a new place in Boca Grande, and and I have no idea what happened to Sandy. So you control what you say. The last thing you wanna do is create anxiety for your people. So that gets into your emotions. Really important right here. Continually refer back to motivation. You're $3,000 apart and everybody's got their hooves dug in. And that's when you come back and say, hey, you know, I thought you needed to be in Chicago, you know, before the birth of your kid. If we don't get this one, we're back in the market, and here we go again. And it's taken us 60 days to get this offer. You guys wanna move on, and, you know, we're not talking about a lot on a, you know, on a $300,000 deal. And, you don't want to insinuate yourself into balancing that transaction. Don't balance it on your commission. I don't mind buying a remote here and there or a Tiffany light, but you know, I had an agent when I was at Coldwell Banker. She was a top agent in Englewood, and but she constantly had deals where she was paying stuff, and I'm not talking about little stuff. I'm talking about bigger stuff, and again and again and again, and finally one day, you know, she was in my office with the latest thing that she was going to be absorbing, and of course wanted the broker to absorb with her. And I looked at her and I said, you know what? I said, you're the only one that comes in my office and makes these requests. I said, you're the only one. I said, what are you doing that lets your people think it's okay to balance it on you? I said, you need to look in your heart and see where you're giving it away, because you are. I said, you work really, really hard for your money, and that is not where you should balance transactions. Every now and again, you'll do things, you know, just to hold it together, but it's if you go down that slippery slope, it's really easy to go down it again and again and again. Same thing as if you discount commissions. It's like you give away the shop, you go, oh, I just really want this first listing. But what, you know, what habit have you now gotten yourself into? And so be real cautious there. That's not for you to pay. Your job is to get good at negotiating, so you find a way to get the thing together. So maybe, you know, maybe if you're $3,000 apart, maybe you can come up with, okay, you know, what if, you know, we split title. I mean, you can come back with some other things and start, you know, working towards the outcome that you want. But don't be attached to that outcome. I mean, sometimes you got deals you just can't put together, no matter what. One of the big things I've always used with sellers, my neighbor next door, Rick and Nikki Powers, they had their house on the market, and they had bought a ranch in Montana, and I mean, he was like a little kid. He'd sold his company, and he just wanted to be there, and so he was really, you know, digging in on a price reduction, and because he was underwater on his house, and he, you know, he said, I can't be under this, or I have to go to the closing table with cash. And I finally looked at him and I said, so what's it cost you to maintain this house? $60,000 a year. And just the taxes were huge, and insurance out there is huge, and I said, so you can't drop your price 30 in order not to pay 60? I mean, it's kind of like, really? I mean, if you can get that house sold in 6 months by dropping it $30,000, you've washed. I had a couple that were from, they're from the UK, and this negotiation actually happened at the listing presentation. He did not want to go where I'd recommended. His wife was there and his daughter was there, and they both had opinions. All three of them did, and so they were renting the house, and I think they'd had to replace a new AC that year, and so, you know, he just wanted to list it way high, and I said, let's talk about this. I said, so what are you spending a year, you know, to maintain this house, your taxes, insurances, and all of that? And it was about $20,000. And I said, so you put in a new AC this year, and I said, your house is this many years old. I says, next year there's going to be something else. They were using it as a rental most of the time. They had had a property manager. And I said, so how does that work out for you being all the way over in the UK when there's issues on our house? And the daughter and the wife went, it's horrible. And so I told the story, and you know I would. and I said, I had my house on Orcas Island in Washington State on the market, and I said, I made a lot of mistakes. I said, I put it in the rental pool, and I said it turned out to be their best rental, and I could only get it shown on Sundays between 12 and 3. It was after the people left and after it was cleaned and before the new people came in. And I said, one of the things, we had a little bit of an issue with water at the very end of the summer. I had a 500-foot well, and the well was tapping into something that got kind of dry about the end of August. And so we had put in we had a 5 inline tank setup. So we had a lot of water in storage, and it was all plumbed together. And right by the road going down through the woods, we were a quarter of a mile down to our house. It was 5 acres. There was a pole and a light. And if those tanks were empty, the well light came on. So I told the people, Bieneman Real Estate, that was handling the rental, I said, make sure the gal that cleans or the guy that cleans keeps an eye out for that well light. That means I need to get water brought in by a pump truck. Didn't happen, ran out. And people came in to rent the house, and they arrived on Sunday, and there was no water. Well, that got out all over the island. Every realtor knew about that water problem. We ended up having to do to sell. So I told, and what we ended up having to do to sell that, we had to take that well down another 500 feet. That cost $37,000. And so, I mean, that was a really big deal. Luckily, we got them to, just submit that to the title company, got it under contract, got her sold. But man, everybody knew about that. It was just that, really. So I said, it's really hard being along. I said, you just can't control stuff. So now I've taken the Mrs. Seller and Seller's daughters, they are back to pain. Pleasure and pain is a beautiful thing to work on. We had to make the pain, the remembrance of the pain bad enough where the pleasure of listing for more money was less important.
Right.
So there's a lot of so that was a negotiation, not even on a contract. Interestingly, that house did go under contract about 30 days later, and guess what? It had Chinese drywall.
Oh, no.
Eventually got it sold, but it turned out to be kind of a pain. Your opinions don't matter. You're going to give facts, and you're going to pull on things that are meaningful to them. So you get into the negotiation, and there's some areas that are really pretty common points to me. Price, that happens all day long. That's usually the big thing, but it's not necessarily the most important thing. So it might be closing. They might want to have an extended close or an early close. So you can have a lot of different terms that might be, like my folks with the MS, Dick and Jane, having an extended close was more important to them than money. So they might have taken a little bit less to facilitate that. And like it says, in terms of an offer, it could be financial or time-based or both. So you've got some other things that you can bring into play on a deal. Sometimes you have to get real creative. Sometimes you can have closing costs. So if you're doing a VA or an FHA deal, and we've got people that don't have a whole lot of money to put down, putting that seller's contribution in to additional terms will help them pay for the closing costs, and raising the price up to what the seller wanted will take care of that. then all you have to do is worry about it appraising. So that's one time where, you know, your closing costs can really be common. Be sure when you list a property that if, you know, you can check that it's either cash, conventional, VA, or FHA. Make sure that they understand that that goes on with those deals and that they're okay with it. Your closing date, that can, I mean, that is totally, you know, it can be important. Now I had some folks that wanted me, they wanted to have a 60-day close on their house, and they wanted to extend it an additional 60 days. And what I recommended to them, I said, let's just ask for post-closing occupancy to give you time to buy your house. And on that particular deal, the buyer wasn't planning to come down for 3 months anyway, and he was cool with it. So you're always looking, crafting a solution sometimes means you can get a little bit out of the box and get kind of creative. Now you might, you know, personal property can come into play. I had a house, they double-sided out on the island, and it was a $1.2 million list, and the house was being sold, not furnished. Well, the buyers really wanted the furnishing, and they just said, you know, where else would these furnishings go? They're perfect for here and for this house. And Judy had decorated it really nice, and it was good stuff. And so part of our negotiations was what they were gonna pay for that, because there was gonna be a check being exchanged. And so then we had to have a list of the items that were being excluded. We went under contract, and a couple of days later, at about 8 in the morning, I get a phone call from the buyer, from Susan. Susan and Howard were the buyers. And she was, I said, Susan, I said, it's really early in the morning. I said, what's up? And she said, Pam, she says, I don't want Howard to know I'm calling you. She says, so I'm gonna call early. And I said, well, what don't you want Howard to hear? And she said, Pat, I've just been thinking and thinking and thinking. She says, you know that dolphin statue in the pool area? I said, yeah. She said, I really want that. And I said, that would have been a good thing to know when we were you know, negotiating. I said, it was on the list of items that were excluded. She says, I know, but Pat, it's really important. And so I said, well, I said, I'm gonna call Judy, but I says, I think I know the answer, but I'll do it. And I called up Judy, and she goes, no. I said, how about the name of the artist? Perfect. She could get her own dolphin statuary done. All worked out very well. Things were good. So, just be creative. Then what can I do? What can I do to get around this? You know, your earnest money is certainly a place that in negotiation, and I told you that before. You wanna have, if you're the seller, you want that to be significant enough where the buyer's gonna, you know, it's gonna make him really pay if he walks away from that deal. Repairs, with our as-is contract, where these come up is, when we, after the inspections are done. So, and with that as-is contract, there's a lot of little things that show up in inspections that, you know, generally, I mean, you just don't ask them to be repaired on an as-is, but big things, yeah. A big thing would be a roof, a big thing would be, septic, drain field, and the septic and drain field are the little hidden things that pop up a lot. It might be, it can be any number of things. One, for sure, you know, that Federal Pacific, electrical panel, that's always gonna come up. They can't even close without
Is that pretty obvious? Says it right on the boxes if you see one?
It's
or?
something the inspector always knows. I wouldn't know one from a hole in the wall. Other agents I'm sure do, but not me. So in your negotiations, so what have we got? The 3 P's: prepare, present, position. So let's see what they mean by that. So preparation. So that's knowing your goal, that's going in with a strategy. And, make sure you fully understand your client's goals. And, it's gonna be good if you know where the drop dead is. And there's usually a drop dead in there. You're gonna anticipate, where that other party's gonna go, and kind of think about how you're gonna counter there. And then really important, you set clear expectations, realistic ones. As always, you underpromise, you overdeliver. One thing that's really important when you're in negotiating is to move as quickly as you can. I will give you an example. I was, my last real estate transaction before I just went full-time into coaching, I had a condo down in the village at Oyster Creek, which is waterfront condominium, and I had it listed, and the buyer's agent was a brand new agent that had not really got a whole lot of training. She was at Remax Palm, and they don't really train them there. And it was a condominium, and all I got from her was an offer. I didn't get condo disclosure or none of the other paperwork. And I told her, from the get-go, I said, you always want to send everything in. I said, I'm a coach. I said, if you'll let me help you a little bit here. And she said, well, that'd be great. I'm pretty new at this. And I said, well, why aren't you sending all the documents? And she said, well, I did one other transaction with somebody that said, don't send me that other stuff until we reach an agreement. And I said, really? And I said, bad advice. I said, you want all your papers to go. Assign a real property disclosure, any riders that are applicable. And so we'd done my folks had done a verbal counter. She got back to her people, and again, they accepted the counter, and all I got back was the signed counter. I said, I still don't have the condo disclosure, and I said, my people aren't gonna sign off a final on this thing until I get that. And she says, well, it was in a different email. I said, huh? And well, then it turned out the real thing was, then he was traveling. That was one of the reasons. And finally we got that he wanted to talk to the president first. And I said, you are jeopardizing this transaction. I said, if you learn nothing from me, I said, learn this. Time is never your friend when you're doing a deal. Never. It's okay to give people time on that initial offer, but after that you move as swiftly as you can. And I said, my sellers are kind of nervous about signing this without a signed condo disclosure. And in fact, they're not gonna sign off on your, because you have to counter one more term. I said, they're not signing off until we get that. And I said, and they're starting to get aggravated. And I said, hurry. I had it a half an hour later. Time is not your friend. Big thing. I have used time a few times where I thought it was appropriate. When you're watching a football game and there's 2 seconds to go, and we've got a field goal attempt that's going to be made, and that will change who wins that game to the other side. You know how the coaches will call a timeout to chill them? I've done that. just it's like, oh, let's make them a little bit nervous. But not very often. Just a few times where it was appropriate. So mostly hustle, and please be thorough. Send everything. You're putting in that offer. You got financing. Put that pre-qual or that pre-approval letter with it. Assign property disclosure, and be sure all riders are included. So also on that setting expectations, I think these last 2 words are really important. Part of setting clear expectations is being clear that win-lose agreements are going to be rejected by the other side. It's got to be a win-win. And that's right in our belief system. The very top thing is win-win or no deal. So, you know, you try and find out as much as you can about that other party. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can't. Please obey all laws. That's always important. And we got a third thing there I just blew by, and we talked about documents.
So would you say it's okay to like go on Facebook, maybe learn about the sellers a little bit by looking at that?
You know, I'll tell you something, I Google everybody.
Okay.
I absolutely Google everybody. If somebody calls me and wants to list their house, I Google them first thing. You know, I just,
What's the best way to kind of go around, like if you have a couple that's being divorced and they're selling their house and the other party, I guess the buyer's agent is asking, you know, what are the circumstances? How do you usually get around that?
well, that's not really something you wanna tell them.
Right. I'm such an honest person, like that's something that I would have to work on, like not just saying how it is.
You know, that isn't the worst thing to tell people, because it's not I bit my tongue, so it's running into my teeth and it's.
Oh, no.
Yeah, it's hurting, so it's making me lisp. I might just share that they're, you know, I might just say that, you know, they've made other plans and they're going on a new journey,
Yeah.
and leave it at that. Because I really don't want them to know there's a divorce going on.
Right. Yeah, those are the things I'm gonna have to practice.
You know, they've chosen another path, and they wanna move on to, a new life.
Yeah.
And just I tell them as little as possible.
Right.
You know, unless I think it's gonna help me and my people.
Right.
You know, I want, and the one thing to always remember is you need to control every situation. Do not let your buyers or your sellers control it. You control it. So questions, do they help you control things? Yeah, they do. And it's much like, you know, one of the things that I hear coming out of the mouths of a lot of new agents, I'm available 24/7.
Right.
You're not. You shouldn't be.
Right.
What are you telling people when you say that?
You have nothing else going on?
You got nothing else going on? What else are you telling them?
That they can just contact you whenever they want and.
They can just walk all over you, huh?
Yep.
So you stay in control, you stay in control in the listing presentation, in the buyer's consultation, and negotiating.
Right.
You run the show, as opposed to the other way.
Right.
Okay, so we're gonna play now. Let's play. So now you guys are we're gonna do this exercise together. We're gonna mastermind it. So here's our scenario. You're representing a single buyer. Your client, and I want you to think of 3 questions that you would ask this client, okay? Your client's renting her present property. Like any first-time buyer, she's looking for you to guide her through the process. The asking price for the home she really loves is $175,000. The house appears to have evidence of a roof leak, is listed as is, and is correctly priced. Your client would like to keep her payments as low as possible, since she still has a number of student loans to pay off. She wants to write an offer for $155,000. There's been quite a bit of activity on the listing. So I want you to think about 3 questions that you might want to ask her.
I would say, how bad does she really want to buy a house and get out of the rental situation if you think that she's coming in a little bit low? Like you asked
What's her
about.
current rent?
Yeah, what is she paying for rent? You're gonna ask her if she needs to finance any part of it. You know, she's got a lot of student debt. What would you ask her about those student loans?
How much longer you
Yeah.
can pay it off for?
Yeah,
How
or
much does she owe?
how much does she owe? How about consolidating them into one loan?
Yeah.
Is that something you could, check out?
Yep.
Okay? There's been a lot of activity on the listing, so maybe you wanna find out whether, you know, we could go into negotiation, would she be able to come up to a price that's, if, you need to find out if they're willing to go to where it's gonna take to get that deal.
Right.
Cause she's sure as heck not gonna get it for $155,000 with a lot of activity on the listing.
Would it be possible that it'd be overlisted, so, since there's a bunch of activity on it?
Could be, but probably not. If there's a lot of activity, that usually says it's priced pretty good. Would you, just say, given the fact that there's a lot of activity, there's probably going to be other offers on this, are you willing to risk losing this house by coming in so low? Okay? Okay, so that's kinda how you work your way through this, you kinda noodle your way through it. Okay, presenting. So we've prepared, now we're presenting, and you're gonna present your offer to that other agent. Number one, call that agent, let them know it's coming. You don't want it to sit for a day in their email, right? You will rarely, one of the things they talk about in here is, you know, actually presenting the offer to the seller face to face. That's not gonna happen unless you've got the listing. And you're not gonna be able to do it face to face with other agent, you're gonna be dealing with everything on the phone. So you're not gonna be able to analyze body language and facial impressions. But listen real hard, you know, if you're on the phone with that agent, you hear an intake of breath, it's like, or disgust.
Yeah.
I think it's really important, and this, whether you're presenting, so let's say you're presenting that offer to the seller, and you've gone over the terms, so what are our terms? We've got price is one, what's another important term?
Closing date.
Closing date, what's another important term?
Escrow, wait, no, not escrow, earnest money, yeah.
Earnest money deposit. Another term, inspection period, and who pays for title, and the closing agent. You may present it like I was talking about, let's say it was, you know, a $300,000 house with a $1,000 earnest money deposit. As I presented it, I would just say we need to deal with this. And so, once you're done, and you presented it, then you better shut up. Let them talk. Because sometimes, you know, they'll go places you don't anticipate, not where you would think they would go. So you need to hear that. So remember, be a calming person. If somebody's throwing a fit, you got the seller and you got a low ball offer, probably before you even do that presentation, you've already told your seller that sometimes people come in with low ball offers because they just wanna test you. And we don't reject any offer, we work with it, no matter what. And then you'll get an offer that comes in for 15% under, and they just say, no. At least try. Focus on your customer's need and give your offer the best chance. Okay. All right, so let's say you're meeting with your your sellers, and you're presenting an offer to your sellers, and you're doing it at their house. So we're looking for nonverbal cues, body language, tone of voice, or rate of speech that will suggest that the negotiation is going in either a positive or negative direction. So face to face, what would be a positive? What would be a positive thing?
They're smiling.
Okay, what else? What am I doing?
Nodding.
Tone of voice, a fist bump's good. That's not a tone of voice. What would be a negative?
Yelling.
Yeah.
Crying.
Stiffening.
Yeah.
Someone that gets really rigid. All of a sudden they go like this. That's just like you got a problem when you see that one. But if they're sitting forward and leaning in, is that better?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. And this is something you're gonna watch for, and I don't care what part of this process you're in, pay attention to body language and tone. You know, we were talking about the showing of the property, and I had the gal that wasn't talking, and I took her aside and said, talk to me, I need to know what you're thinking, because you're not saying a word, and I feel like we're barking up the wrong tree. Go ahead and be vulnerable, ask those questions. You know, if you feel like something's not right, you know, I had a fellow that had come into my office. I was on floor when I was down the street, and it's a long time ago, Joe and his son, and they'd been working with another realtor, and Jessica, and he didn't want to work with her anymore. He didn't feel that she was all that sharp, and so I said, are you sure? And what have you already done with her? So I scheduled, and he was ready for a new agent, and I believed him. He was. So we're going to look at some property, and his wife got in the back seat like this. She would hardly talk to me. She was barely civil. And I could not engage with her, and there's nobody in this world I can't engage with. And it was just like, really? Well, I found out a few days later, I called him about a new listing that had come on at Oyster Creek, and he said, oh yeah, we already have that. His wife was still working with Jessica. She was very loyal to Jessica, and she was pissed at Joe for bringing me in. So that, you know, that body language, I should have just asked her straight out that day. And, but she was very, very forbidding. So I called up Joe, or no, I'm talking to Joe, and I said, well, Joe, you're just gonna have to pick your poison here. I said, right now you're doing us both a disservice. I said, we're both doing the same activity. We're duplicating our effort. I said, if you wanna work with Jessica, fine, I don't care. Just pick one of us. Of course, his wife went out. Wives tend to. On the phone, okay, so now you're presenting an offer on the phone. What would be a positive?
You're probably more cheery and talking a lot more. If they don't like it, they're probably quiet and.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you can hear the smile if they're smiling too.
You can see people through a phone.
Yeah, yeah.
You totally can. Okay.
A lot of positive words being used.
Yeah. Or you go, yaha!
Yeah.
I think we're doing good. Somebody high fives you, you know, you're spot on. Okay, so now we're gonna talk about tactics and counter tactics. Okay, so here's a tactic. It's called nibbling. Once your client has agreed upon one major concession, the other party will start nibbling for other smaller concessions. So what would a counter tactic be? doesn't happen that often, this nibbling thing. But if I'm working with another agent, and I think that's, you know, when you're gonna start running into something, just a look. You know, what exactly do your people want? I said, let's lay this out, because right now, if you just, you know, you keep asking for another thing and another thing and another thing, and I said, and my people are getting very, very upset and about ready to blow out of this deal. Okay, so threat. Hot potato, the other party tries to pass the problem on to you. Okay, co-op agent tries to pass all your closing costs to your client because their client can't afford it. So we talked about this already today. What are you gonna do? It's just like we do on an FHA.
Oh, come at an exact list price and then credit it back to the seller.
With the seller's contribution. Yep. It's like, okay, we'll do that, but you're gonna pay more. That takes care of the fact they don't have the big down payment, and that could be a problem.
Yeah.
I mean, that was like my folks about the house on the island. They needed a 4% seller's credit. She did not wanna pay it. But she did wanna move on. And that, I mean, cause that deal but she was getting a full price offer. So, the good cop, bad cop thing, you'll see that. And, you know, and that's just kind of fun. Yeah, think of when you're at a car dealership. Car dealerships are the hardest things. I hate car dealerships. My last one, not the edge I got now, but the one before that, I took Glenn Alton in. Glenn's an agent in here, and Glenn and I were rookie realtors together, and we've been best friends since 2005. And he's a car guy, and he ran the service department for Crest Cadillac for a long time, and so he came in and we tag teamed that poor guy. I came in with all the facts. You know, I pulled up the Kelley Blue Book, trade-in value, and I also pulled up a price off the website, for this same vehicle I'm looking at, and I said, the guy said, you know, I said, I'm sorry, but I said this trade-in is just horse crap. I said, you know, I pulled up the Kelley Blue Book and it says this. And he said, well, that's retail. And I said, no, that was trade-in value. And he goes, and then I pulled similar things on the website price, and then I wandered off, and Glenn said to the guy, he says, you're gonna have to do better, this deal's gonna blow up. And it was so I did real good. I liked it. So positioning. Positioning is moving both parties closer to each other. Sometimes you have to take baby steps. So you're trying to firm your common ground, and then identify what could be adjusted and which ones are set in stone. You ask what and how questions to better understand the other party's values and why certain things are important to you. You're gonna learn, I ask you lots of what and how questions, because that's what coaches do. I don't ask whys very often, that's why consent, accusative. And so, for example, you represent a seller who wants to close in 30 days. The buyer wants to close within 60 days. So you ask your seller, so Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you're requesting a 30-day closing. What is important about closing in 30 days? And if they get defensive, they usually won't, they'll just have their reason. My goal is to let the buyer know why this is important to you. Frankly, you should already know the answer to that. You've done your homework. But that's how you prioritize and address their issues. You want to really come down to that thing that's the biggest thing to them. And not, you know, not hold the line on every single thing. Sometimes, you know, you'll have an offer and it gets accepted. Not that often. More often, there'll be one counter. But I've had some that have gone back and forth a number of times, And those ones are just, and that happens more when the list price is a little too high and the buyer's, desire's a little too low, then you have to kinda creep your way to it. And know when to walk away. And that's gonna be the hardest thing to do, but sometimes it's not gonna happen. But don't burn bridges, you might end up coming back to that. You know, I've had it before where, you know, it could not come to terms, and then, you do a price reduction, it's the first call I make. This is somebody that we try to put under contract. You get some of these hardheads that have to win, they don't want, somebody's gotta win and somebody's gotta lose, that's usually not gonna be a pleasant experience. Okay, so we're gonna position, so we're working our way, so in positioning, let's, we got another exercise, so let's come back up here again. And so what we're doing in positioning is acknowledging and affirming common ground where they're in agreement, identify what may be easily adjusted and which are set in stone. We ask what and how questions to better understand, and we've got to come down here. So we might have to go back and forth a few times and know when to walk away. So, we're gonna do this kinda together. And so we're gonna put on the buyer's agent hat, and then we're gonna put on the listing agent hat. And actually, okay, so the scenario, the buyer has 4 bedrooms, the property, 3.5 baths, is listed at $350,000 in a well-established neighborhood. The house requires new carpeting throughout the first floor and a new garage door opener. 3 offers have been made, but all were below the asking price. Okay, so now you're the buyer's agent. Let's leave that up here where we can see it. Buyers are making an offer of $340,000. They've been pre-approved, so they're financing. The buyers like to close in the shortest time possible since they are moving from out of state and need a home for their family. Since they are leaving their appliances in their current home, the buyers would like all of the appliances to be included. The sellers have raised their family in the house they're selling and have many friends and family in the area. Since their children are now grown, they no longer need the amount of space their current home provides and have purchased a home in Florida. They would like to give all the appliances to their daughter, who's just gone through a divorce. They will not be moving until they have sold their current home, and although they'd like to get to Florida as soon as possible, they're ready to stand their ground. So, what do we gotta deal with here? What would you say would be, so we got a couple of things that we can position with. What might those be? And this is outside of price. What are 2 areas that we could look at?
They want a quick closing.
So the buyers want a quick closing, and they need a home for their family.
Mm-hmm.
And the sellers, do the sellers need a quick closing?
No.
No? Okay. So, the buyers, sounds like they've got their home under contract, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And they're gonna leave their appliances, so they would like the appliances to be included, and the sellers wanna give them to their daughter. Do you think that that is important to the buyers as getting a quick close?
No.
No, they would like. So to my mind, okay, so you tell me, where do you think, let's keep price out of it for right now. What are we gonna propose?
The buyer pays all the closing costs?
Closing costs are not part of our scenario.
Oh, okay. Just thinking of something they could use to maybe negotiate for the appliances or something.
Yeah. The appliance, we look for a place that, we have things that are set in stone.
The buyer can
The
get-
buyer needs to get there fast. So they need to give something up.
Mhm.
We gotta have a win-win. So they should probably give up the appliances, don't you think? Yeah. Sellers, they could care less about time, but they really care about those appliances for their daughters,
Right.
okay? So you work your way to it, so then you've got price to deal with. So we've had 3 offers that were below the purchase price, and none of them were accepted.
Mhm.
We don't know what those were. So what are we gonna do about price? Oh, let's go back to that first paragraph. We have a roof thing. So now we've got 2 so we dealt with one thing that we can position with, we've got 2 more things. The carpeting shot
Needs new carpet.
and the new garage door opener's not that big of a deal. And, oh, this is not the house with the roof leak. Sorry. I'm mixing my scenarios up. So now, okay, so now we got the carpeting thing, okay? So we're sitting there with a listing, the seller wants that, but the carpet's shot. The buyer wants to make that.
I think that's an okay price, because they're a family. I'm guessing they're a relatively young family, I'm not quite sure, but they wanna be in a loving place like the previous owners were. They raised their family, they have friends near, and that's what they're looking to do too,
Okay.
to start their life off. And since they want the seller's family them to support their daughter by giving the appliances, they're okay with that. I think it's a good price.
Okay.
But then the house, they're gonna still need carpeting and
Oh,
appliances.
they're coming in 10,000 under. Carpeting isn't gonna cost $10,000.
No.
That'd be the most expensive carpeting ever.
Yeah.
And
And
appliances,
appliance, yeah.
well, it depends what kind of brand you're getting.
Right.
I think that would cover it.
So we can probably, in positioning, we can take that appliances and the quick close and kind of wash that. Why not come in, buyers come in at full price of $350 and ask for a seller's credit for the new carpet of $3,000, or whatever new carpet would cost. They get a quick close, and the appliances go to the daughter. So that's kinda how because we got a lot of factors, you gotta balance everybody's factors.
Mhm.
And this is why you wanna get as much from that other agent as you can. Because, we also they've had 3 other offers, which says our price is probably pretty good. And our sellers have been, being pretty big-headed on price.
And they're not desperate to move.
They don't wanna give it away, do they? So by asking for a seller's credit coming in, so that's assuming that the house is worth what it is without the appliances. But appliances aren't that much money. Maybe they just go in and ask for a $5,000 credit for carpet and appliances, boom, you're done.
And that's still coming in at the 340?
Nope,
With the five, or
coming in
coming
at
in
full,
at 350?
coming in at full purchase price, which would make it like 345. They're meeting in the middle, and I always like that.
Yeah.
But they're not doing it on the price, they're doing it as seller's credit. That would then be an expense they could write off,
Oh,
okay?
that's when.
Makes
Yeah.
sense.
Because if you think about it, then that becomes part of the basis. So that impacts taxes. Does that seem like a good solution? Okay. So you gotta factor all that crap in. So, and the whole thing is finding a way to creatively get, we've now got a win-win. Buyer's gonna be in the house when they want to, quickly. Seller's daughter's gonna be happy, she's got her appliances.
Mm-hmm.
They're gonna get a credit that's, a $5,000 credit should take care of carpet and appliances. You know, the seller can write that off, and it's all good. So that's how positioning works. But it really helps if you're getting a good story. I mean, and you will. I mean, you'll be talking to the other agent and goes, yeah, we got this. I mean, because when you are in one, that's when you're gonna start just saying, well, this is really important. This is really important to my seller. And remember, you know, what I did with my folks, you know, I'm getting that 4% credit. I literally just said, it's for the health of my buyer, knowing that Pat would understand, because she was an empathetic person who'd lost her husband 3 years before. So I did that one on purpose. Oh, and I didn't tell you part of that story. Priscilla started crying. She said, she was so upset with me. She said, I don't want people to feel sorry for me. I said, Priscilla, I'm doing my job. I said, my job is to get you under contract. My job is to get you living on this island. You're my best friends. I said, I will do what it takes. I said, this is not about feeling sorry, but yes, it was. I said, it worked. But she got so upset. And that's been part of, you know, having had that stroke. She goes to tears really fast, and you know, it was, she was so upset. And I said, I'd do it again and again and again, all day long. I said, I love you. I said, stop it. I said, this is not about you. This is about getting your home. So, from that one, as you can see, emotion comes in from the darndest places, you know. Okay, so, now, we got another one. Okay, this is fun. So we're gonna choose, okay, we're gonna do this together. We're going to, we are going to be doing a counter offer. So we're negotiating a counter offer, and we're gonna present our case, we're gonna practice positioning, and we're gonna go back and forth 2 times, with the aim is to win at a win-win. Okay, this time, we got a buyer. Buyer has found the house they love, and it's in the neighborhood they want. It's at the top of their price range, and it does need some work updating the kitchen and master bath. Your client makes an offer on the property, and the seller's agent says, I must warn you, we've gotten several offers, and your offer is pretty low. I don't know if that means we have multiple offers or not. Listing agent, your sellers need to move within 45 days due to a job transfer. Ooh, urgency. You feel that you have priced the house competitively. You're aware the house needs updating, but the sellers don't see the need because the house was just fine for them. There have been multiple offers. The other offers are still standing, but the timing may not work for the seller, and the latest offer is lower than the asking price. you have let the buyer's agent know, I must warn you, we've gotten several offers and your offer's pretty low. Okay, we've already been warned up here.
If you're the buyer's agent and you know that they need to move, do you know that at that point, or
No,
you don't know that?
I have a feeling not. It's just that the seller's agent says this.
I guess that's the point of keeping it tight-lipped if you know he's gotta move.
So we've got multiple offers, but we have issues with the timing. That's that 45 days due to a job transfer. Okay, so the buyer's gonna make an offer on it. We don't know prices here. But let's say we come in, we'll be under asking price, because that's how you start offers out. So I'm just gonna make up this scenario that the house is listed for, let's just use our last example. It's listed at $350 and we're making an offer of $340. And we're gonna send it in with a 45-day close because we're getting financing. So that's the offer, so now we're the listing scenario. So they need to move within 45 days. So this one would work out. But they don't think that the fact their house is dated should matter, but it does. Now, there's been multiple offers, the other offers are still standing, the latest offers, okay. Okay, so as a listing agent, or as a seller, you've gotten an offer for $10,000 under price, but, and it takes care of your 45-day thing. But you think your house is just fine. So so as the listing agent, you and your seller are gonna do what?
To remind them of the motivation that they have to move within 45 days.
We're supposed to go back and forth here a few times. So we're gonna counter. We're gonna counter at 348. Because the seller's pretty pig-headed and thinks his house is worth what it is. Okay? So now it's 348 and it goes back to the buyer. And the buyers, so what are the buyers gonna do at this point? Buyers have come in at 340, sellers have come back at 348. I will tell you how I always think. We meet in the middle. There's symmetry there. It works. So that would be coming in at a 344, 345. So they're coming in, 5,000-6,000 under, but they're gonna get their 45-day close. So we could do it on or before and get them out for that transfer. So that's kind of how, so that's sort of like a little game. I think I was, did I tell you the story of my friends that got mad and took all the kitchen stuff? You never know what stories I've told. But that, for them, I mean, when we did the sellers did their response to we had an offer, the sellers responded, the buyers came back, and now we met them in the middle. And that was actually right at market value. And I think with that dated, they're lucky to get 345 or 344 on that house. But because it costs, redoing a kitchen is like 20 grand anyway. But they got kids and they got the neighborhood they want, so that's, you know, that, to me, that goes in. So you got all those factors that you gotta, so with my folks, you know, I just said, okay, let's meet them in the middle. And that was spot on market value. And the only thing that got that buyer into trouble was he went back and he did one little more dip, one little $3,000 very ill-advised counteroffer, and that will get people pissed. And it got my people, it pissed me off. And you're not supposed to have emotions. It's a penny. Don't kill the messenger. I said, I want to kill the messenger.
Yeah, it almost seems like a joke, like coming back with 348 when it's so close to 350. You think they'd at least go to like 345 or something, but.
No, because they know, because if you have the seller, you're gonna say to him, he'll come back at 345.
Yeah.
I mean, I do that. You know, I said, we can just let them know we're kind of digging our hooves in. I said, they're gonna come back 344, 345.
So you would advise just going down a couple thousand from?
Sure, why not? It's kind of like, you know, playing chicken.
Yeah.
If you go, you know, and it ended up being about what it needed to be, and if in my opinion, now we could have just met right in the middle the first time, but the exercises, we needed to go back and forth several times, and I've had them work like that. I'll tell you one of the most unsatisfactory things, and it absolutely turned into just a nightmare, was there was a house on the island that Patsy, who was a friend of mine, owned. Patsy was a realtor, and she was up in Alaska, and she had her house on the market for, I don't know, $799, I think, and I had this lovely couple from Canada, and they put in kind of a lowball offer, and Patsy wouldn't counter. She just rejected it, and it wasn't that much of a lowball offer. She stuck to, she countered a full price firm, and that ticked him off. They would have gone up, and they would have gone up a lot. And I told Patsy that, and she's, nope, that's my price and I'm sticking to it. And I said, Patsy, you gotta negotiate a little bit. She said, no, I don't. Because she was her own realtor. And I will tell you, you will learn that realtors are the worst people to work with on transactions. Especially when they don't think like you. Really.
Now, how much do you push, like, if these people, you know, there's people that are just, like, in love with their house, and these people, you know, think their house is great and it's just fine. How much do you push that by saying, you know, no, it's really not fine to other people, you know, it's outdated, it might need a little bit of updating?
So I would just say, you know, I said, we've already discussed the fact that your house is dated, even though you seem to think it's just fine.
Yeah.
But I said, if you're not looking at it through buyer's eyes.
Just through
what the
their
buyer's eyes are seeing is they're gonna need to come in and put some new countertops, some new cabinets. And Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you need to be in Cincinnati for that job transfer in 45 days.
Yep.
We have run out of time. Your other offers aren't gonna get you there.
Right.
So that's exactly how I would go about it. You just gotta give them a little bit of tough love.
Yeah.
And you know, you are the authority, and that's why it takes a while to kind of get your feet wet on these offers, because that's why you're gonna be bringing me in, and you know, and that's good, and a lot of them are very, very straightforward. There's not as many moving parts, but as you can see, the more that you know about what's going on the other side and what their priorities are, the better it is for your folks. And you're gonna really, really like working with people you know, because you can work through these things better. You'll get, you know, but if you're working with some, you know, arrogant little jerk, you're gonna just, you'll go nuts. So questions? Anytime talk about multiple offers, we'll come to that.
Is there a way that we can get more scenarios for negotiation, or to learn negotiation in a little bit more detail?
You know, I took a class on negotiating. We could spend some time on that at our coaching session on Friday, okay? Yeah, I took a class called Effective Negotiating. I'll go in and see if I can find some more scenarios. That was an elective when I got my ABR. Multiple offers, let's talk about those. First of all, we're gonna talk about it from the listing agent side. So you've got, and there's more of those going on now, just because of inventories being so low. So, from the listing agent side, you present all offers. And let's say you get an offer in, and then you get a phone call from another agent, says, I'm gonna have an offer to you by noon, and then a third one comes in. Now you've got 3 offers to present to your seller. There's 2 approaches that you can make at this point. One of them, if another agent asks you if you have other offers, you say yes. That's, you know, but you do not disclose anything about those offers. If you have something under contract, and an agent comes calls you up and says, so what, you know, so what's it selling for? Do not tell them. That does not come out until after it closes. That's none of their business, that's unethical. That includes somebody in our office. Okay, so now you've got the multiple offers. What you do is you go to you call your seller up and you say, I've got 3 offers in, or I've got 2 in and 1 more coming by noon. And there's a couple of ways we can handle this, and this is your call. Number 1, I'll present all the offers, you pick the one that you wanna work with, and we negotiate with that, on that offer. Second is you can have me go back and tell each of those other agents to have their people do their highest and best offer on it. But understand, Mr. Seller, if you do that, people may withdraw because they don't wanna be in a bidding war. And believe me, that happens. So it's your call. It's not yours to convince, but it's yours to explain that there's a downside. Because most people think, well, you know, a bidding war is great, I'll get more money for it. Maybe, maybe not. You might have 2 parties drop out and you're just dealing with one offer, and it's not the one you like the best. You know, so let's say you've got a cash offer that comes in, and let's say your list price was $350, and you get a cash offer in for $340 with only an inspection contingency, nothing else. You get in one that's a VA loan with a seller's credit for 4% at full list. And you also get in another one that's got a conventional loan, and they're coming in at 5,000 under, they're doing 20% down, and but it's not closing for 60 days. This is what's gonna happen, you know. You might have one that has a contingent on the sale of somebody's house. So if you present all offers, you just go over the pros and cons. Cash is usually king. You know, if all things are even, and you've got something that's a cash deal for you know, close to the amount of one that's financing, cash deal should win every time, because financing can be turned down. Just because somebody has a pre-qual does not mean they're gonna get their loan. Because pre-approvals start, that's when they actually go in and look at stuff. And sometimes they find things that are not good, like foreclosures. Foreclosures generally, it's 3 years before most lenders will make another loan. I think the VA is 2 years, if I recall. Anyway.
Do you find that most pre-qualifications are okay, or not?
No, some are, some aren't.
Yeah.
But you know, you've got, first of all, your See, once they verify things, some things will pop up, they haven't been on the job 2 years. They went out and bought a bed on credit after they went under contract, whoops. They took a new job. Well, it's the same job, it's just, a different company.
Right.
Understand that lenders they do a credit report when they do the pre-approval, and they do another one right before closing. And if there's any changes, bad.
Right.
Sometimes, on conventional loans, there might be money that's being used for the down payment that hasn't been seasoned. That means it came into their account in the last 2 months. And the lender's going, well, where'd you get this money? And they don't like where it came from. All kinds of things can happen. That's why cash is a beautiful thing.
Right.
So on your multiple offers, if you're on the buyer's side, you're just going to tell them that it's my understanding that we've got multiple offers on that. So you probably wanna put your best foot forward. And if they ask you what it's gonna take, you really don't know. Sometimes houses sell for over list. But if there's financing, it's still gotta appraise. So having done a good market analysis is gonna help you on that, or you really comped it out well. More questions? Look to me for help. Your first few deals. Do never, ever, ever not call. And if for some reason you can't find me, just be sure you got that company phone list and call another one of the big agents. Everybody in this building wants to help. And
I have a question.
Yeah.
The lady I was telling you about, the first home buyer. So I sent her the packet yesterday, and I read over it first, and then she, after reading it, she contacted me again, and she asked me, do we need to sign the buyer, like the agreement?
The brokerage agreement?
Yeah, first, before she goes and get pre-qualified, but doesn't she need to be pre-qualified first?
Oh, just have her get her pre-qual.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because she was asking me if I would go with her and everything for the lender.
Yeah. Is she gonna meet with Mark?
She hasn't really said. I told her about him, and she said that she might find her own, but she wanted me there. Do you normally go with them, or that's what I thought? And when she was asking me, I told her usually we don't go with someone.
To be honest, I just really don't wanna have anything to do with their finances.
Yeah, that's what I didn't wanna get involved with.
It's other than, they might find out that they need to do some work on their credit.
Yeah.
And do a little credit
I didn't
repairing.
even really wanna get involved until after she's pre-qualified,
Yeah.
so, okay, that's what I was.
Yeah.
And then after she is pre-qualified, I can sign the brokerage agreement, right? And where do I go to get that? I was looking last night, but.
You should be able to find it in let's go look.
Is that
Okay.
the single agent transaction?
That's what was
That one?
confusing me.
Well, there's 2 agreements.
Yeah, I seen 2 different ones, and I was like, I'm gonna print the wrong one, or.
Let's just go on in here. Okay, so let's go into start my transactions. Okay, and I'll just go into track forms. So we're gonna add a document. Excuse me, voice is kind of rugged today. So let's check our buyer sale package. There's a brokerage disclosure. Now this form is not the exclusive agreement.
Okay, that's what I was confused about.
So we're gonna pull up both of them, but I wanna show you where they are first. If we go in buyer sale package, let's try if applicable. They've changed all the packages, so I don't know where they are now. Agreements, there we are. No, yes. Well, I'll tell you something. They're making this way too hard. Let's go into Florida Interactive Forms.
There was one out there that said brokerage relationship. On the left side, scroll up,
Yeah, I saw that.
above disclosures, I think,
John has changed all these, I don't know where anything is.
right there.
Okay. Exclusive brokerage agreement is one. And then the other one is the, so why is this in there so many times? Holy moly.
Yeah, the folder I was in yesterday and I was so confused.
Okay, so here's the different one. Here's two of them. This one, if you don't do the exclusive agreement, you need to minimally do this.
Okay,
This does not require them to be loyal.
okay,
All this is an agency disclosure. You're telling them that you're a single agent.
okay.
In the state of Florida, you are considered to be a transaction broker unless otherwise disclosed. So it is required that you disclose that you are a single agent. The second part of this form, you put the broker's name here, Keller Williams Realty Gold, not yours. And down on the next page is the consent to transition to a transaction broker. You have to be a transaction broker if you're going to do a sale with somebody in this office on the other side, or if you are doing both sides. And so, because a single agent can only be loyal and obedient to one party. A transaction broker's loyalty is to their broker. We are a facilitator of the transaction. And that's exactly how I would just explain that you are a facilitator of the transaction.
Okay.
And that you owe everyone, total confidence. Anything one side said, the other side doesn't get to learn about. Your other form is the exclusive buyer's brokerage agreement, and that's the stronger agreement. And this one is a combination of an exclusive agreement along with the single agent disclosure and the transition to transaction broker. So this one says that the buyer grants the seller or the broker the exclusive right to work with and assist buyer in locating and negotiating the acquisition of real property. You date it, run it 90 days or something like that. You put in the type of property, single family residence, condo, location, Charlotte/Sarasota County, whatever. Price range and whether or not they've been pre-qualified or pre-approved, and who by. Covers our obligations and covers their obligation. And on number 6, retainer, there's 0. And compensation, what you wanna put in here is 3%, and tell them that would only be exercised in the event they buy a for sale by owner property who will not sign a commission agreement with you. But this ensures their loyalty. So that's the stronger agreement. Not everybody will sign one of them. But just say this just says I'll exclusively represent you, and then as you move down this form, let's go to the next page. We're back to our single agent disclosure, that's agency only, and a consent to transition to a transaction broker. So it's all in one form.
Okay.
And you need to have something signed by them, and you really should have it signed before you show them any property.
Okay.
It used to be whatever your representation was, you had to disclose it, but now it's only if you're not a transaction broker,
Okay.
whatever. Okay?
Okay.
In our script, one of them, it says that there's a for sale by owner kit.
I
What are they talking
sent that to you.
Okay.
If you find the email that had the FISBO email where I had the links, I had a link to a video and I had a link to a blog. I had an open house registry attached and a toolkit attached. I sent that, right?
Yeah. I think I watched the video with the girl that only does open houses and that's it.
Yeah. And she did something like 6 million her first year.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
What did it say? It was like she didn't get a buyer or anybody until like her 37th open house.
I know it. I know it. It's
Like-
but she figured out how to do it.
Right, right.
And the other gal's so tricky, she doesn't take any information, so she has to get their email address so she can send them the flyer.
Right.
Wonder how she's managed to do that subterfuge for all these years. Oh yeah, I forgot those. Oh, that's what you said last week. You want me to send it again, Blake?
No, I found it.
You found it? Good.
So, and then you just give the FISBO the toolkit for like open house lead gen or?
Well, go into the toolkit, it's a zip file, and see what's in there. She should have scripts, door knocking scripts when you're at the open house.
I can't open it on my phone.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll look at it.
Okay. All right, my dears. So, tomorrow will be tomorrow. It's all good, whatever we're doing tomorrow.
11 and 12.
We're gonna finish up with, we've done contracts and then we start getting into contract to close. And we're gonna put 11 and 12 together in one session. And, mostly we'll be on 11. And I'm gonna tell you right now, after a while, I mean, anyone can show property and get good at that, and eventually you can get good at contracts. But the hardest thing in this business is getting her done, contract to close. And that's the part where sometimes you just really, again, have to get creative. A lot of things can go sideways. Problems can come from the inspection, problems can come from the lender, problems can come from your buyer. It's like, oh yeah, I didn't mention that. Whoops. And so noodling through all of those, one of the things you're gonna say to me is like, why is it only me? why am I the only one that gets this? And when you say that to me, I'm gonna go, everyone says that. And each one is unique, and be patient. You have me as your resource. If for some reason, when I travel, I usually have Leslie Brown back me up, but any of our megas can answer questions, Leslie or Audrey or Jen Philbrook is always really helpful, or Jen Clifford is really helpful, and knows her stuff. You can talk to Jen Philbrook or Leslie Vignolini. They were in coaching with me and they went through this. They were like my frequent callers constantly, but they were doing transactions, and that was good. Each one you do, you get better and smarter. First time you're gonna, write an offer, you're gonna spend a lot of time on it, and then every time you do one, it gets easier and easier, and pretty soon you can just whip those puppies out. But, don't be intimidated by it, or like, don't panic, just call, okay? Don't call in the mornings, cause you know where I am. If you need something in the morning, call someone else. And it's a fun business. I like it when I get challenges. I mean, some of the darndest things can happen. And I once told somebody, I said, I just hate it when the deals are boring. I mean, when there's nothing going on. Because here's the deal. When you show your people you can fix something, that's an opportunity. I consider problems opportunities to show your stuff. And they go, wow, good job. And then they're your raving fan. But you do, so what we'll talk about is just a lot of the stuff that goes on between contract to close, and dealing with lenders and title companies and inspectors, and it's all good. So we'll do that tomorrow. And I know which ignites I need to send to who. And according to Debbie Muntz, my recordings aren't as bad as I thought. I saw her last night. She said, no, they were fine, Pat.